In attacking Iran, President Donald Trump made similar mistakes as many CEOs do when formulating and executing strategy. These mistakes are easy to make because they result from the subtle and partly hidden interplay of strategy and emotions. I've seen many CEOs fall into the same traps, and the research on strategy and emotions explains why these mistakes happen and, more importantly, how you can avoid them. In this video, I will describe 6 lessons we can learn from Trump's decision-making process. Trump is intentionally relying on his intuition when making his big decisions. He has said that he will know it in his bones when it's time to end the war. The problem here is that when you rely on your feelings as the primary source of insight, you can twist any fact to support your initial preferences. Like Trump is now saying that actually it doesn't matter that the Strait of Hormuz is closed because US is producing its own oil. So he's turning things upside down. But if you want to make decisions based on the best understanding on strategy and emotions, you actually define very explicit and measurable criteria that you will use to determine when it's time to act or not to act. In my Nokia research, the company ultimately created these kind of criteria, and it fundamentally helped in transforming the company from mobile phones to mobile networks. The top management team set criteria that we expect the phone sales to be more than 10 million per month, and if the sales drop below 6 million per month, then we radically revise our strategy. Trump has actively silenced internal critical voices. Already in 2017, the Financial Times reported how Trump's underlings are really managing up and avoiding sharing information that might upset Trump because they didn't want to face his anger. And now, in his second term, this dynamic has become much worse. Already before he started, he fired all leaders of FBI, CIA, and others who might have countered his ideas and hired instead his team of yes men. So he's creating an echo chamber that amplifies and reinforces his own ideas, which means they amplify his own biases. And this way, again, he makes sure that no one disagrees with him, which is another way of saying that he makes sure that no one helps him think twice or think better or think more critically about his decisions. And again, this mistake is not unique to Trump, but very common among powerful leaders. In my own empirical research on the collapse of Nokia mobile phones, I showed how middle managers' fear of the senior management and the board of directors hindered or prevented middle managers from sharing critical information to the leaders, and therefore the leaders made decisions based on mistaken beliefs, and the whole company was destroyed. And after this study was published, I got contacted by employees and leaders from dozens of companies across the globe who told that their firm has similar challenges. So what you need to do as a leader to prevent this is that you really encourage the critical voices and you openly debate options. You can even switch sides in the debate to challenge your own ideas. Make it clear that you want to understand how the world works and you want to update your own thinking based on all relevant information. It doesn't matter whose initial idea was the best. What matters is that through discussion and analytical work, you arrive at the best possible idea. In launching the war, Trump assumed that the Iranian people would rise against the government, and he explicitly encouraged the people to do so. And this way of a leader to think that other people are equally excited about his strategy and put energy into action as expected by the CEO is a common mistake in strategy implementation. But in reality, the employees often couldn't care less. it's far more likely that they hate your strategy than that they love it and put all effort in. Fortunately, research also shows that you can avoid this mistake. You simply start thinking about the strategy implementation from the employees and middle managers' point of view. Think about what they are feeling, what risks there are for them, and what could potentially drive their actions. And then highlight these aspects in your communication. And if you want to be more rigorous, you can interview them, you can conduct surveys, even do A/B testing before formal strategy implementation begins. He assumed that Iran would not attack the neighboring Arab countries. He assumed that Iran would not block the Strait of Hormuz. And he assumed that Iran would not adapt its military strategies more generally to fight against the US bombing and other attacks. And each of these assumptions meant that the United States wasn't prepared for the actions that Iran performed and delayed and harmed the success of the military operation. And again, this type of overconfidence in own ability to get things through just as you planned is very common in strategy execution and strategic planning. It's because it's very pleasant and easy for you to think what you will do and what impact those actions will have on others, while it's cognitively much more difficult to think how those others will react, and it's very unpleasant to think how those reactions will make your life more difficult. And while this makes our strategy simple, it doesn't make the world simpler. The world remains complex, and your strategy fails because you have ignored that complexity. Solution here is that you really perform multiple role plays where you assign different roles to the enemy, to the competitors, to the third parties, and each of those tries to make the best out of the situation. And then you overcome your emotional denial and defensiveness and integrate those ideas into your plan. Trump failed to secure commitment and emotional commitment from important stakeholders and potential partners. Importantly, he didn't have the approval from the Congress, he didn't have the support of the American people, and he didn't have support from Arab countries neighboring Israel, and he didn't have support from Europe. And now each of these stakeholder groups is frustrated with the United States and doesn't provide all the help that the US would need in getting things done properly. And Trump is facing more and more resistance also from inside his country and government. And not limited only to partners, but even with Israel, who is very committed to the mission, Trump and Israel have different goals, and it shows that they lack shared understanding of what they are doing and the depth of emotional commitment. And this lack of shared understanding and joint emotional commitment in an ecosystem type of activity is a very common mistake among leaders. Many CEOs are used to having hierarchical power over their middle management and employees, and they think that by simply telling others what to do, they get things done. But when you have a coalition of countries or a group of companies in an ecosystem providing value together, you cannot simply order them. You must make them want to work with you, and you must create strong emotional excitement and commitment to the shared vision and action. And how you do this is that you really speak about them, but you also tell stories, show vision, provide analogies, let them concretely experience the situation at hand, and make them feel that your joint mission is absolutely super important. This was particularly salient in the strike on the girls' school in Iran, which killed around 400 people. The strike happened because the intelligence information was about 10 years old, and Iran had long since changed the building from being a military place to a school. But because they were rushing and overconfident in their abilities, they didn't double check this, and they simply did the strike. And as horrible that is, the same tendency is among CEOs and other leaders, that we often rely on outdated information in decision making. Theoretically, this phenomenon is called cognitive inertia, which means that we form beliefs in one day and then we don't change those beliefs even though the world changes. To avoid this cognitive inertia, you should regularly double check your assumptions. So really explicate what you believe about the world and have a team to double check that does this still hold true, and find the most critical assumptions that have to be true in order for your strategy to succeed. Doing this requires emotional humility in the sense that you admit to yourself that some of the things that you think you know are actually not true. When you do it with a reasonable pace and with enough support team, it doesn't become overburdening, but it actually saves time and increases your positive impact. In summary, President Trump's decision-making process in Iran war demonstrates many of the errors that recent research on strategy and emotions has discovered. By analyzing these mistakes, I showed how easy it is to make strategic choices based on faulty assumptions about the conditions, about the competition, about the employees, and how reliance on your own emotion, intuition, and how undermining critical voices will increase the likelihood that you make bad strategic choices. By being emotionally humble and applying the lessons in this video, you can make better decisions. We can learn from every failure. And here is a great learning opportunity for every one of us.